Death and complete devastation continues to be wreaked on the Gaza Strip. Now, Israel's relentless campaign of bombing pretty much all infrastructure facilities, including hospitals, ambulances, schools, and densely populated civilian neighborhoods continues. As the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu continues to say that still there is no possibility of a truce. In the latest, the death toll in the Gaza Strip continues to mount. The Israeli army has continued to strike even schools that are run by the United Nations. In the latest, this is the United Nations-run school that has been bombed by the Israelis, in which thousands of innocent Palestinian civilians have taken refuge because their homes have already been bombed. And according to reports that have now come in, at least about 12 people have been killed and several others, dozens of others, have been grievously wounded after this Israeli bombing. The Palestinian Red Cross has condemned the Israeli strikes in a statement where it said that one of its ambulances, remember, was struck by the Israelis. Now, this ambulance was right outside of a hospital. It apparently had told the Israelis, and it had sought clearance, that these convoy of ambulances were evacuating the very grievously injured Palestinians and were taking them towards the south. And despite that, this convoy of ambulances was attacked by the Israelis. The Israeli strikes continue to indiscriminately hit refugee camps, schools, residential buildings, besides other systems of infrastructure. Now, Israel has also reportedly now struck a French cultural institute in the Gaza Strip. And France has reacted to the Israeli strike with astonishment and incomprehension. This is what the French are saying. The French foreign minister has now demanded for a full investigation as to why the French Cultural Center in the Gaza Strip was in fact bombed by the Israelis. Now, France, meanwhile, will be hosting an international humanitarian conference for the civilian population in the Gaza Strip on the 9th of November. This as it looks to coordinate aid for the besieged Palestinian enclave. Indonesia has now sent its first batch of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip that includes food and medical supplies. The 51-odd tons of these supplies have been provided by the government and several humanitarian organizations in Indonesia. Now, Israel claims that it is going after the Hamas fighters, but from the images that are coming in, these are some really densely populated neighborhoods. The very worst fears have now come true. There is street fighting that is in fact taking place in some of the most densely populated neighborhoods in the Gaza Strip. A lot of people who could have fled from these places, but there are still at least 500,000 people in the northern part of Gaza who are stuck there. Israeli military continues to release footages of this kind that shows its troops and its tanks and other armored vehicles engaging in their operations. There's also monochrome footage that has been released by the Israelis that shows the airstrikes and air bombings that the Israelis are carrying out on the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, the Americans are continuing with their diplomatic efforts, even as they continue to arm the state of Israel with more and more weapons. Now, the American Secretary of State Antony Blinken is yet again on another shuttle diplomacy tour of West Asia. He's arrived in Jordan after his Israel visit as part of his fresh West Asia tour. Blinken in Israel had urged for a temporary pause to the military onslaught by the Israelis in the Gaza Strip. However, Netanyahu has rejected all American calls for any cessation of their onslaught into the Gaza Strip. And the Americans have not stopped sending weapons to the Israelis. The Americans are sending the weapons that are being dropped on the Palestinians. That is the American role in this war. In Jordan, Blinken will be meeting with 5 Arab foreign ministers. The foreign ministers of Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates and Qatar will meet Blinken in Amman later in the day today. While Blinken was speaking in Israel, the Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah also spoke on the war for the very first time. He's outrightly called the 7th of October attack by Hamas as exclusively a Palestinian effort and has denied any involvement either by Iran or Hezbollah in it. He's also warned that a wider conflict can realistically break out in West Asia if Israel continues with its onslaught of a relentless campaign of bombings on the Gaza Strip. Now, Hassan Nasrallah has also firmly blamed the United States of America, stating that although it is the Israelis who are bombing the Gaza Strip, it is the United States which is pulling the levers behind this war.